was young, a pre-teenager, it was either walk, ride a horse, or a buggy and wagon. That was it. There was practically no automobiles.
Things are a little different now.
Oh, mercy. When I first moved to Houston in 1940 and opened my business, during the day, weekdays, you could pretty near shoot a gun up and down Main Street, not hit anybody. Saturday night, the town was full. Music back then
That's what I could find so far.
was something that I could enjoy, but most of the music today I don't care for. I like country and western, and actually, as far as knowing music is concerned, that bus passed me by. I don't know music much at all.
Okay.
I love good country singing.
Okay.
Most of them today, I think, are a bunch of crooks.
I know what you mean.
I heard a man say on the radio the other day, or television, he said, we've got a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. that's got a lot of book learning, but they don't have any common sense.
Would you say when you were young it was different?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Describe what politicians were like back then.
Well, most of them were people that when they told you something, you could depend on it. They didn't tell you that they was going to balance a budget and reduce the deficit in half for their first election. And instead of that, they didn't bother the budget. It went clear out of sight, and they almost doubled the deficit.
Yeah, it's true.
So he also told us in this last election that he was not going to bother our guns. Now he's doing everything under the sun to take them in. Chicago, Illinois has got one of the strictest gun laws, and they won't hardly tell you how many murders they have. It's the murder capital of the world.
It's true.
Our dress with the women are like that. There'll be pay periods that they dress decent, and then I don't know how to say this, but at times they seem to wear how little of clothes they can wear.
So that seems to go in cycles?
That goes in cycles. I have seen young women with the shorts on, way up short, and a coat. They were more of some, less of some.
Okay.
When I was up until World War II and shortly after, we had lots of quails. Quail is a scarcity today.
Okay.
I bought a bunch of boxes, 3 or 4 boxes at an auction here a while back, and I got a whole bunch of men's socks, about 3 dozen pair, brand new, and they had a stick on them, made in the USA. Well, 3 or 4 years ago, I was having. No, by the way, it was my wife having therapy. And I found one of them slips that come off them socks that made in the USA. So I taken with me out the hospital, and I told the receptionist, the lady that was taking working tests. No. I said, I found an antique. I mean an antique. What's that? I showed him a sign, made in the USA. Well, back then, as young people worked. I told you here, the year I was 14, I put in a corn crop by myself. I had been working much longer than that. Here this spring, told my kids, I said, I've worked for over 85 years and I've quit. And I was 10 to 12 years old. If I got a dime, I was proud of it and I'd hold on to it. I worked many days when I was a teenager for our neighbor. Our neighbor was a pretty good farmer, 5 daughters and no boys. I worked for him several days, 50 cents a day, and my dinner, 10 hours. I did the man's job. I went up to see him one day. I hadn't got any work from him. I went up to see him, see if he didn't need some help. He said, yes, Ted, I do, but I ain't got no money. I said, what about one of them pigs you got out there in the pen? Yeah, he said, I'd let you have one of them. I said, what do you think it's worth? Well, he said, I think they're bringing about $5. I said, you want 10 days' work? Yeah. I said, you got a gunny sack? Yeah. Pick up one of them pigs, put it in this sack, and I'll carry it home. I think I was about 16 then. And I pulled a lot of weeds, bought a little feed, got that hog up to about 250 pounds. I butchered it. Mom and I throwed the hams and the shoulders and the sides in the truck on baby sheet. Come to town, sold it. Sold a little over $20 worth. We had the head, the ribs, the backbone, the feet.
Wow.
Schooling is a wonderful thing. But a high school education or a college graduate doesn't give you a job. I got a 7th grade education. The year that I was going to 8th grade, they'd taken my dad to the hospital. We got things lined out. He got feeling all right. And October, I got it off to go to school. I went 3 days and had to quit, and I didn't go back. I was just lost. At the John Deere dealership, right down Pine Street, was Watson Hardware and Implement with International Harvester. In 1941, John Deere came out with a 6-speed on their A's and B's. International came with 5 speeds on their H and M farmhoes. I'd had one John Deere BN and it had 6 speeds and sold it. Had the second one in. Never in my life did I ever drive one of my tractors in front of their place of business. I'd go up and down Main Street, but I would not go in front of their business. I was gone to St. Louis one day and got back the next day. Pretty well up in the morning. Farmall went by. I said to the bookkeeper, I said, oh, they're kind of showing off or something. Oh, said he went by here a half a dozen times yesterday. Well, he went by several times that day. In the afternoon, I went out and told the boys in the shop, I said, bring that bee in here and slide those rear wheels right out on the end of the axle. If you know why, the wider your wheels are, the harder they are to turn over. So I want them right out on the end of the axle. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to stop that farm out from coming by. What are you going to do? You going to bait him for a race? And I said, no. Nope, I ain't going to bait him. He's going to batter me. So the next morning I had an LA and an H and that B. I put two guys on the LA and H. They were slower. I said, you're going to make one trip up and down Grand Avenue and come back. I made two. Me and a kid about 14 years old somewhere in there got in a race with a bicycle. Going down street, going north, which is a little downhill, you don't think unless you look at it. He could outrun me. My governors wouldn't open it up going down like they would. Coming back, I could outrun him. So I made two trips, come up to corner of Aiken's and turned and went back down and pulled in front of my place of business, shut the tractor off. There was one or two of my men come out there. About that time I heard the farm off. I said, well, he's a-coming. Well, he come up Pine Street to Grand Avenue, pardon me, turned south. Oh, they said, he's not coming. I said, just keep your shirt on. Pretty soon he heard him coming back down First Street. He come in, pulled up behind me and said, Ted, let's see what you'll outrun. I said, okay. He said, which way we go? I said, you name it. He turned around, pulled down on Pine, pulled over on the left side. I pulled down, started, and he said, okay, take off. We're taking off. I just stayed with him to the foot of the hill. Got the foot of the hill, I reached over with the right foot and caught the governor's ring, pulled her back, and I mean, I went up that hill.
Now that would have been the hill toward the high school.
Yes.
Okay.
And I went on up and turned over to Ozark Street toward the big turn. And when I turned, he was just getting up to the end of the pine. And I was going to go back and go right on up Main Street. But the grocery store was still by the side of me at that time. And just before I got up to the stop sign, here come a produce truck, a delivery truck, pulled out across Pine Street, backed up in front of the grocery store. I had to stop. But when I got back inside of Pine Street, it was full of people. And I thought, well, what in the world? There was nobody there when we left but my help. Old Eddie Nichols was standing back into the drugstore.
And that's Eddie's son sitting right back there, Mr. Cage, okay?
So, pulled up and stopped, and he come up and stopped. Eddie said, well, who would have thought a two-cycled outrun a four? Two-cylinder. Somebody said something, and directly Eddie said, put him to real test, tie him together. I said, get your chain. Brrr, time, and he went home. And a favorite verse of scripture. And as I told you earlier, I remember going to church in wagon. And my dad's favorite scripture was Psalms 1. Blessed a man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth her fruit in this season. His leaves also shall